Hello everyone, welcome back to the lecture series for NATA and JEE-2 preparation. Today on day 5, we are starting with a new module, that is module number 2. As you are aware, we are doing this 51-day lecture series for full preparation of NATA and JEE-2, and in this lecture series, we are completing the 100% of the syllabus. And if you are aware about the structure which we are following an 8 module structure starting from module 1, 2 and so on till module 8, and we will complete 51 days of lectures in this lecture series. So today we are starting with module number 2, that is day 5. On day 5 we are looking into the topic of history of architecture, under which we will cover the topic of ancient civilizations. This is R. H. Chandar from KP classes, and before I start with the lecture, let me take you briefly through the module structure and tell you where we are exactly in the overall syllabus which we are covering. So if you look into the 8 module structure, module 1 we have already completed that in from day 1 till day 4, that is basics of design. I hope you have gone through module number 1 and have practiced enough from the practice resources of it, and also have gone through the study material, study resources provided on KP classes app. So let us start with the second module today, that is overview of world architecture. What is the content which we will cover here in overview of world architecture? We will mainly study two aspects: history of architecture, that's the first aspect. So this is a bit lengthy module, we will do it from day 5 till day 12. So the first 6 days we will cover history part. What is history? Studying about the historic buildings and ancient civilizations. So we will cover about the ancient and historic structures and civilizations firstly from day 5 till day 10, that is in 6 days. And then the last 2 days of this module we will cover the important buildings, both from NATA and also JEE point of view. It is very important to know important buildings across the world, important buildings across India, and also features about those important buildings. So we will study about some important buildings on day 11 and day 12. So this is the overall structure of module number 2. After completing module number 2, we will go on to the next module, module 3, which is architectural terminology. Keep following our series on the same YouTube channel. We are providing 100% of the syllabus for free on this YouTube channel itself. So make use of this wonderful resource for your preparation of NATA and JEE-2 examination for this year. So let us start with the history of architecture part. So as far as this module is considered, the module number 2, that is overview of world architecture, I told you we'll study history and important buildings. As far as history is considered, history of architecture, we will study history of architecture in 6 days. So today on day 5 we are starting with the ancient civilizations. So there are two parts for history of architecture: Western and say Indian. These boundaries are not 100% rigid, but just to give you an overview, just to get a better understanding of the structure which we are following for history of architecture. Western civilizations are basically anything west of Indian subcontinent, and in the Indian history of architecture we will focus on the historic structures of Indian subcontinent specifically. So there are 3 classes for each: day 5, 6 and 7. So day 5, that is today, next 6 and 7, these 3 lectures will be on Western history of architecture. 8, 9 and 10 will be on Indian history of architecture. So that is point number 1 which you should be clear about. Point number 2, what are the points covered under Western history of architecture? The points we cover under Western history of, we will follow a timeline, like historic, say we will follow a chronological order here. So the ancient civilizations, we will cover them first. So under Western history of architecture, we will first cover ancient civilizations. Under ancient civilizations, we will cover the ancient river valley civilizations. So today's day 5 lecture is completely focused on ancient civilizations itself. So one point to be remembered here: under ancient civilizations, we will cover all the ancient river valley civilizations, including the one in the Indian subcontinent. So that's the reason I told you these boundaries are not 100% rigid. It is just to get an overview. So we'll first cover the ancient civilizations, including the Indian subcontinent's ancient civilization. Then we will study about the classical architecture. Let me give you a bit of even more detailed overview here. You can also maintain your own notes so that for later on reference also you will have an idea what are the topics covered under the first topic. So under ancient civilization, we will cover three main topics, very important for NATA and JEE both. So we will study ancient Mesopotamian civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, ancient Egyptian civilization, and also Indus Valley civilization. I'm in short writing it as IVC, or you can write the full of it, that is Indus Valley civilization. So these are the 3 points covered under today's lecture, that is ancient civilization. After ancient civilizations, we will study classical architecture. Under history, we use this term classical architecture to study Greek and Roman architectural styles. So Greek and Roman, we will cover these two under day 6, that is the next lecture. Day 7, the third lecture of Western history of architecture, we will focus on the church architectural styles. There are various church architectural styles. We will see the details of how church architecture evolved with time and what are the various phases of church architecture. So this is day 5, 6 and 7. I hope you have an overview now. What are the topics covered in the next 3 classes? Now coming to the Indian subcontinent, that is day 8, 9 and 10. The topics we will cover over here start with Buddhist architecture, because the ancient part, that is Indus Valley part, we have already discussed under, we will already be complete, we have already been completed in today's lecture itself. So the next topic would be Buddhist architecture. After Buddhist architecture, we will study about Hindu temple architecture. And the third lecture of Indian subcontinent will be focused on Islamic architecture, with a special focus on Mughal part, Mughal era, which is in Indian subcontinent. So this is an overview of the 8, 9 and 10, that is Indian history of architecture. After these 6 lectures, we will look into the important buildings. Under important buildings, on day 11 we will study important buildings across the world, and day 12 we will study, so we will study separately important buildings of Indian subcontinent or India in specific, and we will also study the important buildings of the world separately. So this is the overall structure of module number 2. I hope you now have a clarity where we are in the overall module number 2. So we will do it in these 3 parts: Western history of architecture, Indian history of architecture, and important buildings part. So stay tuned for all these lectures. Just looking at one lecture and then leaving away this module and moving to the next module, that would be the worst way to prepare for the examination. So it requires a lot of dedication. Put in your time. We from our end also are putting our efforts and giving you the best possible lecture for your full preparation of NATA and JEE. So you also need to put the equal efforts in your preparation. So with this understanding, let us start with today's lecture. Today's lecture will be focused on this first portion of module number 2, that is ancient civilizations and the 3 eras of it, that is Mesopotamian, Egyptian and Indus Valley civilization. So that is the content which we will discuss in today's lecture. So moving further, let me tell you what are these ancient civilizations. Now, there are 4 major ancient river valley civilizations or ancient riverine civilizations of the world. So you can have an overview or look at this particular map to just have an understanding. So they're spread throughout the world, starting from China, India, and also in the Middle East part in Iran and Iraq, and then in the Egypt, in Africa, in north of Africa as well. So the ancient civilizations basically belong to the ancient period, and these ancient civilizations predominantly belong to the Bronze Age. These ancient civilizations which we are studying in today's lecture, they belong to the Bronze Age. So before we dwell into the details of these ancient civilizations, what are they, where are they located, what is what are the features of it, before we get into all those details, let us have a brief understanding on what is this Bronze Age, or what is the age classification which is used in history. So not only the architecture, anyone who studies history understands about the 3 age classification first. So let us get into or know the details of what is 3 age classification in history. So there's something called as 3 age classification. Make a note of this point into your notes as well for your self reference. So the 3 age classification starts with number 1, Stone Age. After Stone Age you have Bronze Age, and the third phase is Iron Age. Civilizations in human history pass through these 3 phases. They start typically as a Stone Age, then they evolve into Bronze Age, and then finally evolve into Iron Age. What is the name? Why do we have such names, bronze, stone, and iron? Because these are named based on the material which is predominantly used for making tools and other equipment in that civilization. So typically when civilization starts, human beings or human civilization start with stone as the major material for tools and equipment for hunting and other tools, and then they move towards bronze, that is Bronze Age, and then finally you have the Iron Age. So this is a typical 3 age classification which is used in history. Further, the ages are further subdivided into classes, like Stone Age is further divided into 3 phases. You have Old Stone Age, Middle Stone Age, and New Stone Age. Old Stone Age is known as Paleolithic Age. If someone asks you what is Paleolithic Age, it is basically Old Stone Age. Paleo is a root word in Greek for old. Lith is stone. Paleolithic is Old Stone Age. Then you have Mesolithic Age. That is middle. Meso is a root word again in Greek for middle. So this is Middle Stone Age. And then you have finally Neolithic Age. Neo is basically New Stone Age. And the civilizations which we are studying, they typically started out as a Neolithic civilization, and then they reached their full say they reached their peak. All these civilizations which we are studying, like Egyptian civilization and all, they belong to mainly Bronze Age. So these are Bronze Age civilizations which we are covering under ancient. So that is something which you can remember with respect to the 3 age classification of history. One last point you can add to this 3 age classification is, after Stone Age and before Bronze Age, there is a transitional age also sometimes which is seen, which is called as Copper Age, because bronze is an alloy of copper. So before Bronze Age starts in, sometimes you also have a brief phase of Chalcolithic Age. Chalcolithic is Copper Age. So it is a transitional phase between 1 and 2. Sometimes you also see in civilizations Copper Age, which is known as Chalcolithic Age, where copper is the predominant material of tools and other equipment. So these are something, these terms, try to remember. What is Chalcolithic Age? It is Copper Age. What is Neolithic, Mesolithic, and Paleolithic Age? These are Stone Age. Then you have Bronze Age, and majority of the ancient civilizations which we are studying, they belong to the Bronze Age. So have this overview on the 3 age classification, make a note of it and remember these terms. Now moving further, let us try to understand about the ancient civilization. So the ancient, now what is civilization? Let us try to understand the word itself and then look into the 4 ancient river valley civilization. Civilization is basically a permanent settlement. If you look into the human history, human beings started out typically human beings started out as hunter gatherers, and when people started to rely on agriculture, that's when civilization came into picture. So agriculture is basically a place where people settle down and grow their own plantation, grow their own animals for their livings, for their livelihood, right? So these are permanent settlements. Civilizations are basically characterized by permanent settlements where people settle down, build their own cities and towns, constructing cities, having permanent settlement. These are the characteristics of civilizations. Now I told you the root cause for civilizations, basically it is because people started to rely on agriculture rather than hunting. So they used to settle down in one place. That's when they had time to build their own cities in civilizations. Now for agriculture, the most important resource required other than land is water. So these river valleys, these ancient civilizations which we are studying, they all existed along river valleys. So these ancient civilizations are also known as ancient riverine civilizations or ancient river valley civilizations. There are a lot of ancient civilizations, but the major ones, there are 4. So there are four ancient river valley civilizations across the world. So in these 4 points, approximately around the same time, few decades probably before or after, but more or less along the same timeline around Bronze Age, you have four main centers of river valley civilization across the world. Now we understood what is the three age classification. We also understood that the river valley civilizations which we are studying, they belong to Bronze Age. That is point number one. Point number two, I told you the meaning of civilization. It is basically a group of cities or permanent settlements where people settle down and rely on agriculture. Point number three, the main resource which is required for civilization to flourish in the ancient time was a river which had continuous supply of fresh water which is required for agricultural purposes. That is point number three. Now, point number four is there are four main centers of such river valley civilizations. Let us now go towards the geography of it. Let us try to understand geographically on the map of the world, where were these four centers? What are these four ancient river valley civilization of the Bronze Age? Let us get to know the details. So if you look into this map of the world, these are the four centers. Let us start from the eastmost part, that is China, and then we will move towards the west. So the first one, number one, this is the Yellow River civilization. It is generally called as Yellow River civilization of China. It is located along Yellow River in China. As you can see, it is also known as Huanghe Valley civilization in China. Number two, the second one is Indus Valley civilization, that is in India's west part of India and Pakistan, western portion of India and present day Pakistan. So it belongs to Indian subcontinent of the ancient times. That is number two. Third river valley civilization was in present day Iran and Iraq. That is on top of this Persian Gulf. That's where you have Mesopotamian civilization. That is number three. Fourth and final one is Egyptian civilization, which is existing in the northeastern part of Africa. So these are the four main centers. Now, there can be a lot of river valley civilizations, but the four major riverine civilizations of the ancient world during Bronze Age were these four civilizations across the world. Now, from NATA and JEE point of view, we focus on understanding the architectural details of only Indus Valley civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, and Egyptian civilization. We don't study the architectural detail of the Huanghe Valley civilization, that is Yellow River civilization, in detail. It is generally not covered even in the curriculum of your BArch, that is bachelor's in architecture, even after NATA examination as well. So you don't have questions much from that particular part, but if you're interested, you can get to know its details further and do some research from your end and try to study about it. But in this lecture, in this video, let me focus on what is important from NATA and JEE point of view. That is, we will look into the details of Harappan civilization, Indus Valley civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, and also Egyptian civilization. That is basically the four ancient river valley civilizations. Let me tell you some important details about these four river valley civilizations. So try to make a note of it. You should have it as a reference for the four ancient river valley civilizations. There was a direct question on this part in NATA examination recently. So remember the four ancient riverine civilizations. There are four ancient riverine civilizations. Why are we using the word ancient? Because they belong to the ancient era. It belongs to the Bronze Age, as I told you. So the four ancient riverine civilizations include, number one, Yellow River civilization of China. What is common in these riverine civilizations? They all exist along a river system. So try to remember the name of the rivers. A question was asked in NATA examination once on the civilization and what river it existed along. So remember, Yellow River civilization of China, as the name suggests, it was along Yellow River in China. Other than that, there is not much detail which we will study about this Yellow River civilization. Number two, second ancient river valley civilization. I'm starting from east, from China, and moving towards the west. So if I'm moving towards the west, the second one which comes is Indus Valley civilization, which is in the Indian subcontinent. Why am I using Indian subcontinent and not India? Because there are parts of Indus Valley civilization, ruins and ancient cities which fall in present day Pakistan as well. So I'm using the word Indian subcontinent for that reason. And what is the river along which this Indus Valley civilization existed? It existed along river Indus and its tributaries. River Indus and its 5 tributaries. Tributaries are basically the branches of the river. Now, what are the 5 branches of Indus River? We will look into those details in a while when we study the details of Indus Valley civilization in today's lecture. Number 3, third ancient river valley civilization is Mesopotamian civilization, which is existing in present day Iraq. This is present day Iraq. So the river system along which Mesopotamian civilizations existed was river Euphrates and river Tigris. There are 2 rivers here. Remember the names of both the rivers. River Euphrates and river Tigris. Between these 2 rivers, you had Mesopotamian civilization of present day Iraq. Fourth and final river valley civilization is ancient Egyptian civilization, which is in the northeastern part of Africa, that is in the country of Egypt in today's time. And what is the river system along which this particular civilization flourished or existed? It was river Nile. So these are the names of the rivers for these riverine civilizations. Remember the name of the rivers and also name of the civilization. So this is an overview of the 4 ancient riverine civilizations or river valley civilizations. Now also try to relate, have a mental picture of the geography. This is far in the east in China, then comes Indus Valley civilization in Indian subcontinent, then in Iraq portion, that also is in Asia. 1, 2 and 3, all the 3 are in Asia. Third one, the last and final one, fourth one is in the northeastern part of Africa. So these are the 4 centers of the ancient river valley civilizations of the ancient world. So we looked into the introductory points as to what is the 3H classification, what are the ancient river valley civilizations. We got to know those details. Let us now move into further detail and study one by one these ancient river valley civilizations. Let me tell you one point over here. As I already mentioned, we will not look into the architectural detail of this Yellow River civilization. We will do the remaining 3. Now, the order which we are following in this video to study about the details of these 3 ancient river valley civilization are: first, we will study about Mesopotamian civilization, number 1. Then we will study about the ancient river valley civilization of the Egypt, that is number 2. Now what is the reason for this? Why am I not starting with Indus Valley civilization? Because I'm following a chronological order here, timeline. So based on the timeline, it is said that of these ancient river valley civilization, the oldest one, the oldest known one is Mesopotamian civilization. That's the reason we are discussing that. We are doing it in a timeline order, starting with the oldest one, then the next one, and then the next. So this is called as chronological order. Now also, that with that said, this is all based on the known history. It is very much possible that people or archaeologists at this point of time don't know details about Indus Valley civilization, and actually Indus Valley civilization predates all these civilizations by a lot of time. That is also very much possible. So considering the known history, this is the chronological order which we are following. So we'll start with Mesopotamian architecture. So we'll study some details about Mesopotamian civilization, some details to be remembered about it, important buildings of it. Then we will look into Egyptian civilization, some important characteristics of it, some important buildings under it. And then thirdly, we will look into the Indus Valley civilization and some important buildings and material used in that particular time. So that is how we are going about it. So when we are studying ancient river valley civilizations, point to be remembered: number 1, geography, where is it located, along which river it is located. Number 2, important construction material used in that civilization. Number 3, important buildings and their characteristics. Like Egypt is known for pyramids, Indus Valley civilization is known for its say Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro. So you have to remember those important buildings and their characteristics. So this is the content which we will cover in this today's video. So I hope you are maintaining your own running notes. I'm trying to put down all the important points on the board. Try to maintain your own running notes. That is very crucial. And if you want some additional reference study sources, you can always access our study sources from the KP Classes app as well. So download KP Classes app, which is available on Play Store. So when you download this KP Classes NATA app, so when you download this, you can find the details of the KP Classes NATA app scrolling down on this bar of the video as well. So download KP Classes app from Play Store. Once you sign up into it, you will find these three horizontal bars on the left hand side of the screen. When you click onto those three horizontal bars, you will have the side draw which opens up. In that side draw, point number 2 is study material. So this is where you can find the free study material for each and every lecture which we are uploading in this YouTube channel. So we are not only providing you the free lecture series here, we also are giving you free study resources for your self preparation. So download the KP Classes app, go to the study material tab and get access to the additional study content which will be useful and helpful for you in the course of this 51-day preparation along with this video series. So with that clear, let us look into the details of the first civilization. So what is left out in this video? What is it we'll cover in this lecture, the remaining part of this lecture? The three ancient civilizations, because we are leaving the Yellow River civilization of China. The remaining three ancient river valley civilizations, the details about them, material used in them, important buildings under them, one by one. Starting with the first one, that is Mesopotamian civilization. Now in the other names, if you see Egyptian civilization, it is called that way because it is in Egypt. Indus Valley civilization, it is called that way because it is along river Indus. But if you look into the name Mesopotamian civilization, you're not getting to know any details of its geography. Neither you're knowing from the name that it is in Iraq, neither from or nor from that name you're understanding that it is along river Euphrates or river Tigris. So Euphrates, Tigris, Iraq, these words are not seen in the name itself. Why is it called as Mesopotamian civilization? Many people have this doubt. So listen carefully, why is it called as Mesopotamia, or what is Mesopotamian civilization? Mesopotamian civilization is basically the civilizations of Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia. What is Mesopotamia? It is a geographic region which falls between two rivers. The word Mesopotamia is of Greek origin. I told you a while ago when we were discussing about the three age classification. I told you about Stone Age, and I told you Paleolithic, Mesolithic and Neolithic age. What is Meso? I told you the same root word here, Meso. So whenever you're studying history, whenever you're learning something new, try to understand the meaning of the words, try to look into the root words as well. This way of preparation will be very beneficial for you to understand or build up your vocabulary as well. Now, why is it important to build up your vocabulary? Because English also is a part of these competitive examinations. Even in NATA, you get synonyms, antonyms, and the best way to prepare that is based on root words. So try to understand the root words and try to remember whenever you come across root words. So Meso is in between. I already told you Mesolithic age is Middle Stone Age. So Meso is basically, even in Mesopotamia, the first part of the word Meso stands for in between or middle. It's a Greek word for in between. And Potamia is the word Potamia comes from Potamos. Potamos is again a Greek word for river or rivers. Potamos is river. Potamos is a Greek word for river. So based on that, Potamia is that word which means basically rivers. So what is the English translation of this word or phrase Mesopotamia? In between rivers. So Mesopotamia is a region, is a geographic region which falls in between two rivers. And which two rivers are we talking about here? I already told you the names, and you have to remember the names of those river systems. River Euphrates and river Tigris. So what is Mesopotamian civilization? Mesopotamian civilizations, basically they are, so if you read the name carefully, I wrote it as Mesopotamian civilizations with an S, because this is not a single civilization, it is a group of three different civilizations, sometimes a fourth civilization also. It is a group of civilizations. Why are we grouping them together? Because Mesopotamian civilizations are those civilizations which belong to this geographic region which falls in between rivers, and the rivers which we are talking about here are river Euphrates and river Tigris, which fall in the country of Iraq in present day's time, mostly in the country of Iraq in present day's time. Now the next point which you need to remember here is not only that Mesopotamia stands for land between the rivers. What are the civilizations under it? Mesopotamian civilizations, I told you, is a group of civilizations. So under Mesopotamian civilizations, you have various civilizations like Sumerian civilization, Babylonian civilization, Sumerian civilization, Babylonian civilization, and Assyrian civilization. Also, sometimes Persian civilization is added to the list. So all these are in the same geographic region. So after these three are the main Mesopotamian civilizations. After these civilizations, then came the Persian Empire. In that region, Persian Empire was established. So that is a brief on history. Persian Empire, or the first Persian Empire, which is also called as Achaemenid Empire. So you can also write that name, Achaemenid Empire. So don't get confused when you come across terms like Achaemenid or Persian Empire. Where is it located? What is it? Just try to remember the overview of this history. That Mesopotamia is a land between these rivers, River Euphrates and Tigris, where these ancient river valley civilizations of Sumerian, Babylonian, Assyrian, these are the names of various civilizations. Sumerian, Babylonian, Assyrian civilizations existed in this region. All these three together are called as Mesopotamian civilizations. And why are we grouping them together? Because they belong to the same geographic region, that is land between the two river systems. So after these ancient river and river valley civilizations in this region, Persian Empire was established, which is also known as Achaemenid Empire. So in this video, we will briefly get to know the details of these. So there are commonalities because all these are Mesopotamian civilizations. So we will just try to understand important buildings, important structures, important architectural character of the Mesopotamian civilization in brief. Let us look into the important points now. First and foremost, so you can see a structure over here. This is a temple structure of Mesopotamia. This belongs to the Sumerian period. So this city, if you see the overall city, this is city of Ur. The name of the city is city of Ur. This was the capital of the Sumerian civilization, which is a part of Mesopotamia. This belongs to Sumerian civilization. Now, what are the important points about city of Ur? You can see that the overall city, it is protected with a moat. It has a protective moat. Moat in architecture is a canal or a water body basically. A protective water body or protective canal. If you visit Red Fort in Delhi, you have a protective canal surrounding it, a water body. So generally forts also have that protective water body or canal, which is called as moat in architecture, M-O-A-T. So even the city of Ur has its own moat. That is point number one. Point number two, that the most important structure of the city of Ur, you can see what is the building which is standing out. Obviously this one. The most important structure of the city of Ur was the ziggurat. Ziggurat was the most important structure of the city. So if ziggurat is so important in the ancient city of Ur of Sumerian civilization, which belongs to Mesopotamia, you have to know the details of its architecture. So let us get to know the details of the ziggurat. This is a zoomed in picture or reconstructed image of how a ziggurat would have looked like originally. So starting with the details of ziggurat, the purpose of it. Ziggurat is a temple structure with diminishing platforms. What is the meaning of diminishing platforms? That is point number one. Diminishing platforms as in series of platforms. You can see the first platform, a second platform over it, a third platform over it. So there are three platforms here, 1, 2, 3, one above the other, and on the top of it you have the temple. This was done because there was this psychological understanding that God was somewhere in the heaven, which is in the skies. So they tried to construct temples somewhere into the skies, tall structures. So ziggurats are very tall structures which were constructed in the ancient Mesopotamian civilization. Remember the word that is very important. What is ziggurat? It is the temple structure of Mesopotamian civilizations. So it is constructed in levels 1, 2 and 3. 3 levels is seen in the city of Ur. The ziggurat of Ur has 3 levels, and so that is point number one. It is a temple structure with diminishing platforms. In the case of city of Ur, there are 3 levels, right? Second point, now because there are diminishing platforms, it is a temple structure on the top with 3 levels of platforms. It is important to give access. When you're having a tall structure, how will you if I ask you reach from ground floor to the first floor, how will you go? Using a staircase or a ramp. So even in ziggurats also, for this vertical transport, to give access to the ziggurat, stairways and ramps were constructed. Stairways and ramps were provided in ziggurat. To give access, stairways and ramps were constructed in ziggurat because it's a very tall structure with multi levels of platforms. That is point number 2. Point number 3, what is the material here? The material used in construction was brick, because this region which we are talking about, the Mesopotamian region, there were no forests in this region. So no large trees, no forests. So there is no timber in construction. Stone was also not locally available. What is the material left out? Just clay. Clay was used to make bricks out of it. So the material used in construction over here is clay bricks. Various types of clay bricks were used. Normal sun-dried clay bricks were used. Sun-dried bricks and burnt clay bricks both were used in construction. What is the difference between sun-dried bricks and burnt clay bricks? Sun-dried bricks are where the clay is made into a brick and just dried in the sun. That is one type of brick which was. Burnt clay bricks are better quality bricks where you burn them to give better strength. So this ziggurat of Ur of Sumerian period, the inner part of it, the interior part of it was constructed using sun-dried bricks, but the outer covering was made out of burnt clay bricks to give it better strength, better look and better life to it. So these are the points which you can remember with respect to the first important structure. So I hope you are remembering or getting that overview. We are looking into 3 different civilizations, of which Mesopotamian civilization is the first one. Within Mesopotamian civilization, we looked or covered the first important structure, that is ziggurat, which is a temple structure with multiple platforms in it. So that is number 1. Second important building or second important structure of the Mesopotamian civilization, this belongs to the Babylonian period. Ziggurat of Ur, I told you it belongs to Sumerian period. This is a Babylonian period structure. The name of this is Istar Gate. So this is the second important building, which is Babylonian city, the main gate of city of Babylon, which is Istar Gate. Istar Gate is the main gateway of the city of Babylon. It is gateway of city of Babylon. It is the entrance gateway. This is the enter. What is gateway? The entrance to enter into the city. Which city? City of Babylon. City of Babylon was the capital of the Babylonian civilization. I told you again, within Mesopotamian civilization you have Sumerian, Babylonian and Assyrian civilizations. So under Sumerian civilization we looked into the city of Ur, that was the capital, and the main building was the ziggurat of Ur. Here the city is city of Babylon. Even in city of Babylon there was a tall ziggurat constructed. Even in city of Babylon there was moat for protection. But city of Babylon also had large beautiful gateways, and the most important gateway is Istar Gate of it. Let us get to know the details of this particular gateway. First and foremost, the material used over here. This also is made out of bricks. The types of bricks used here, there are 2 types of bricks used over here. Burnt clay brick. Burnt clay bricks were used in the construction in the interior. In Sumerian period it was used in the outer part, but here in the inner part, inner side of the wall, burnt clay bricks were used. The outer covering was made beautiful with blue glazed bricks. So remember that material, blue glazed bricks. So this is about the construction material. You can see in this picture also the outer part is completely ornamented with blue glazed bricks in the Istar Gate, which is the gateway of the city of Babylon. That is point number 1. Point number 2, the ornamentation on it. You see these patterns of dragons. So horned dragons were seen in the ornamentation of this gateway. It is ornamented using pictures of horned dragons. So you see the pictures of horned dragons in this particular gateway. So that is also something which you can remember. So that is the nature of ornamentation of this gateway. So other than that, with respect to the city of Babylon, you have to remember one more interesting feature. In the city of Babylon, there was a important, a very famous garden, which is also one of the ancient seven wonders of the world, which is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. So the city of Babylon, the important point to be remembered is, other than Stargate, the next important point to be remembered is, in the city of Babylon there was Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Hanging Gardens of Babylon is also one of the ancient seven wonders of the world. What is Hanging Garden? It is called as Hanging Garden because these gardens were constructed as multiple terraces. It's like a multi-storied building with levels of garden, and these gardens look like as if they are hanging from the top. So that's the reason they were called as Hanging Gardens of Babylon, which were constructed along river Euphrates. River Euphrates was taken as the source of water for these gardens. So that is a brief idea and understanding on the Babylonian civilization. So within a quick recall, let me just, because we have learned a lot of new things, let me quickly take you through the points of the Mesopotamian civilization. Firstly, we discussed what is Mesopotamian civilization. It is a land between river Euphrates and river Tigris. Other than that, I told you Mesopotamian civilization is not a single civilization, but within it there are multiple civilizations like Sumerian, Babylonian, and Assyrian civilization, which all later on were replaced by the Persian Empire during the Achaemenid Empire time. That is about the overall understanding of the history of the civilizations. Then we started well into the architectural details of it. Firstly, I told you the important city of Ur. The city of Ur had a ziggurat of Ur, and this was the capital of the Sumerian period or Sumerian civilization. And I told you the details of the ziggurat of Ur, its construction material, its design characteristic, and what was its purpose. It was built as a temple structure. You can also see this picture over here. And after that, I told you the important structures of the city of Babylon, which has its important gateway, that is Stargate, decorated with blue glazed bricks. For the first time, before in Sumerian period there was no blue glazed brick, only burnt clay bricks were used in the outer part. But here, to give it better beauty to the structure, the outer part was decorated with blue glazed bricks. And other than that, city of Babylon was also known for the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. So that is about the second civilization. The third and final important structure or important civilization under Mesopotamian. So under Mesopotamian, there are three civilizations I told you. Sumerian, we completed Sumerian civilization by studying about Ziggurat and city of Ur. That was the capital. Second civilization is Babylonian civilization, and the capital was the city of Babylon. We studied about the gateway of Babylon, the Stargate, and we also studied about the Hanging Gardens of Babylon briefly. And the third civilization is Assyrian civilization, and the capital city of this Assyrian civilization, what you see in this picture, this is known as the city of Khorsabad, which is in present day Iraq. This was the capital of the Assyrian civilization. Now in this Assyrian civilization also, what is something which you see common? You see that important structure, the temple structure. Even in the city of Khorsabad of Iraq during the Assyrian civilization, the most important structure of the city, important building or structure of the city was the ziggurat. But the ziggurat over here, this is a 7-tier ziggurat. What is the meaning of tier? Level. There are 7 levels here. In the city of Ur, which we discussed, that ziggurat had only 3 levels, 3 platforms. But here you can see it has 7 levels. It is a 7-tier ziggurat which you have in this particular city of Khorsabad, which is the capital of the Assyrian civilization. Other than that, you can see that this particular city had ornamentation with these figures, these mythical monsters, these mythical creatures, which are known as Lamasu. These are basically man-headed winged bulls. Man-headed winged bulls. So these are bulls with wings and with a human face. So these were seen in the ornamentation in the city of Korsava during the Assyrian time, and these lamasu, that is man-headed winged bulls, were also seen in the Persian architecture later on. Persian architecture also has a similar characteristics as that of what we discussed under Mesopotamian architecture. Final point about this particular city of Khorshabad, the material even here is the same. The material used is clay bricks. Various types of clay bricks were used, like normal burnt clay bricks or sun-dried bricks or glazed bricks, blue glazed and other glazed bricks, glazed as in colored bricks. So these are the various types of bricks which were used in the Mesopotamian. So with that, we have completed the Mesopotamian civilizations part. Mesopotamian civilizations existed along those river systems of river Euphrates and river Tigris. So that is Mesopotamian civilizations. Let us start with the second civilization, that is Egyptian civilization now. Before we look into the architectural character of ancient Egyptian civilization, let us get to know a few details about this ancient Egyptian civilization first. First and foremost, the most important point you have to remember with respect to ancient civilization is it existed along River Nile in northeast of African continent. Africa, the continent of Africa. On the northeast end, you have River Nile, which drains away into the Mediterranean Sea. So, River Nile, which drains into the Mediterranean. You can remember some geographical details like this. That River Nile is a northward flowing river. It drains off into the Mediterranean Sea, and it is located in the northeast of African continent. You can remember such aspects of geography of this civilization as well. Drains into Mediterranean Sea. So this is with respect to geography. Point number 2 about ancient Egyptian civilization is, unlike the previous one, so before ancient Egyptian civilization we studied about Mesopotamian civilizations. What was the common feature in all those Mesopotamian civilizations? The material. The construction material was predominantly clay bricks. I told you various types of bricks were used. Sun-dried bricks, burnt clay bricks, colorful glazed bricks also were used. So different types of, because there was no stone in that civilization, no forests or no timber. But here in ancient Egyptian civilization, the predominant construction material along with brick is also stone, because limestone and sandstone were naturally available in this region abundantly, and that was used in construction. So the second aspect with respect to the material used in this particular civilization, remember the materials used include limestone and sandstone. These are types of stones: limestone, sandstone, and also clay bricks. All the three types of materials were used in the construction in ancient Egyptian civilization. That is point number 2, the second detail about this civilization. Now the third important point about this civilization is with respect to the religion or the religious belief, the architecture of ancient Egyptian civilization. Now if I say, without teaching you Egyptian architecture, if I ask you what is the first building which comes into your mind when I ask you about ancient Egyptian civilization, anyone who has brief idea about history of the world will tell me that these are the most famous buildings. That is pyramid. Everyone knows pyramid because they are the one of the seven wonders of the ancient world and also one of the seven wonders of the modern world as well. So everyone knows that pyramids are the most famous structures in ancient Egypt. Now why are pyramids so important? So the third point is that religious belief. Egyptians, ancient Egyptians had the religious belief of life after death. So the belief of life after death. So ancient Egyptians believed that death is not the end of a human being or life. After death, there is afterlife also. Because of this belief, they used to construct elaborate tomb structures. What is a tomb structure in architecture? It is basically a building or a structure which is constructed to commemorate a person who died. So that is a tomb structure. So ancient Egyptians used to mummify the bodies of dead people, and they used to store them in these elaborately designed tombs specifically for the kings and the royals of ancient Egypt. The kings and royals of ancient Egypt, the rulers were known as pharaohs. So the ancient Egyptian pharaohs were given a lot of importance, and after their death, the bodies were mummified and were stored in the tombs. So because of their belief, because of the belief of ancient Egyptians in the concept of life after death, they used to construct elaborate tomb structures. So the architecture of ancient Egypt is dominated by tombs. Why were tombs important? Because of the belief in life after death. So remember this point. So with respect to this particular point itself, third point, that is life after death and tombs, there is one additional term which you can remember here. Ancient Egypt is also known for its necropoli. Necropoli is a plural. In singular form, it is called as necropolis. So in ancient Egypt, you also find necropolis. What is necropolis? Necro is a root word, is again a Greek word for dead, and polis is city. So necropolis is basically city of dead, city of dead people basically. So in ancient Egypt, you sometimes find these large groups of tombs, not a single tomb, but multiple tombs constructed in a region or a space. So that particular portion of the city where you find a lot of tombs is generally referred to as necropolis, because it is a complete city of only filled with tombs, that is dead people. So necropolis is a term which you can remember with respect to ancient Egypt. So that is about point number 3, belief in life after death. Point number 4 is with respect to the other importance. Other than these tombs, ancient Egypt is also known to construct grand temples. Monumental temples were constructed. Monumental temples were also constructed in ancient Egypt. So with respect to ancient Egypt, material, I told you limestone, sandstone and bricks. I also told you about the geography of it. The most important point with respect to the typology of buildings, ancient Egypt is dominated by tombs and temples. So with respect to the architectural character, we will look into the details of the tombs of ancient Egypt and temples of ancient Egypt. So these are some introductory points. Make a note of these 4 points for your reference in the notes as well. You can look into the geography in this particular picture. It is River Nile, which drains off into the Mediterranean Sea, which is a north flowing river, and along this river valley you find the river valley. So it is a river valley civilization of the ancient world, that is ancient Egyptian civilization, and you find the settlements along the valley of River Nile, and also the delta of this part is called as delta of River Nile because of its shape. When rivers drain off into the sea, they form a delta over here. Because of the triangular shape, they are known as delta. So along the Nile delta also you have a lot of settlements. So these are some important points with respect to the overall identity of the ancient Egyptian civilization. Let us, with this understanding, move on into the buildings. Let us try to get an understanding on the important buildings of the ancient Egypt. So as I told you, we'll look into the details of the tombs and temples. First, let us understand the details of the tomb structures. Tombs of ancient Egypt. Many people with respect to tombs of ancient Egypt think that only pyramids were constructed, but that's not true. Various types of tombs were constructed in ancient Egypt. So let us get an understanding on the various types of tombs constructed in the ancient Egypt. What is the importance of tombs? Tombs were the structures in which the mummified bodies of the dead people would be placed. So that is something which you have to remember. So with respect to tombs, the initial form of tombs which were constructed in ancient Egypt were known as mastabas. So initially tomb construction started with mastaba. Mastabas were basically smaller tomb structures. Pyramids were very huge and elaborately designed. Mastabas were something which had a flat roof profile like this. These were constructed as smaller tomb structures in which there was an underground burial chamber where the dead body would be mummified and would be buried. Above that, a small, so there's a connection over here to place the dead body inside, and then over that underground burial chamber, a small flat roof structure. This is flat on the top. So a flat roof structure was constructed. This is referred to as mastaba. So earlier tombs, this is the earliest type of tomb. Earliest tomb structure of ancient Egypt. The earliest tomb structure of ancient Egypt, remember, was the mastaba. After mastabas, then came pyramids. After mastabas, pyramids were constructed later on. So after few years or few decades or few dynasties, so there were around 30 dynasties for ancient Egypt. So after few dynasties, then pyramids came into picture. The second type of tomb structures, pyramids were further divided into types. There are various types of pyramids like stepped pyramids, bent pyramid, and sloped pyramid. There are three types of pyramids. So the famous ones which we generally know of, which we see over here, these are sloped pyramids because they have a smooth profile of sloping profile. So these are called as sloped pyramids. But other than that, there were bent pyramids also, there were stepped pyramids also. So based on the profile, we will look into the details of these in the next slide after a minute. Let me tell you about the third type of tomb structures also. After pyramids, even in the later kingdoms, or during the end phases of the ancient Egyptian civilization, tombs were constructed as rock cut chambers. So there were these hilly terrains. If you move on to the west part of the Nile, there were these large hilly, there was the hilly terrain which was available geographically. So in that hilly terrain, chambers were cut in. So then kind of structures were carved into the rock, and then tomb structures were constructed. So this is known as rock cut tomb structures. So finally, instead of constructing large pyramids because it was time consuming, or it was difficult to procure that large amount of material, bring and construct, instead of that, rock cut tombs were constructed. Finally, rock cut tombs were constructed. So these are various types of tombs which are constructed in ancient Egypt. Rock cut are basically where they're cut into the rock, into the hilly terrain. So various types of tombs were seen in the ancient Egypt. That is the first point which you need to understand with respect to the tombs of ancient Egypt. Mastabas, the early tomb structures with a flat roof. Then came pyramids, where you have different types of pyramid: step pyramid, bent pyramid, and also sloped pyramid. And finally, you have rock cut tombs as well constructed. So the best known example for the sloped pyramid is the pyramids of Giza. So these three pyramids which you see, 1, 2 and 3, these are known as the pyramids of Giza, and the largest one in these three is called as the Great Pyramid of Giza. So you can remember the best example for the sloped pyramid. Best example is the sloped pyramid of Giza, or sloped pyramids of Giza complex. So Giza is a city in Egypt where you find the sloped pyramids of Giza, the picture which you can see over here. There are three large pyramids on this site, and the largest one is called as the Great Pyramid. So where is the Great Pyramid located? It is located in Giza. One other interesting feature of the sloped pyramid of Giza, or the Great Pyramid of Giza, is this mythical monster. So you find a large lion figure with a human body, and the name for this particular structure is Sphinx. This is known as SPHINX, Sphinx. So a question was asked in NATA once, where they gave this picture and asked, what is this particular picture? So you have to remember the name. Let's try to make a note of it. This is SPHINX, Sphinx. And what is Sphinx? It is a mythical monster with a lion body and a human face. It is a sculpture with a lion body and a human face. And where is it located? This lion body, human face Sphinx, a large Sphinx is located. The one, try to look into the picture also carefully. You get picture identification based questions also in the NATA. So try to observe carefully this particular pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Giza. Just on the same side beside it, you have the Sphinx, which is a mythical monster with a lion body and a human face. It's so connected with this sloped pyramid of Giza complex. The largest pyramid is the Great Pyramid, and near the Great Pyramid you find the Sphinx, which is a mythical monster. So remember these points and try to remember that name, Sphinx. That also is important. So these are some important points with respect to the tombs of ancient Egypt. Before I move on to the temples, let me briefly show you these pictures. I told you I will tell you what are stepped pyramids and bent pyramids. So let us try to get an understanding on the different types of tombs and their evolution from pictures. If you look into this picture, the evolution of pyramids is shown over here. Originally, old burial sites were not designed with any building. They were just covered with mud. Then later on came mastabas. I told you what a mastaba looks like. It is a flat roof structure. On the top it is a flat roof, and you have a small room or a space for the temple of the dead person. The body would be buried underground, and you can see in this picture as well, this is mastaba. Underground burial chamber is seen, and then you have a small temple on the top of that burial chamber. So these were the earlier tomb structures. Then came stepped pyramids. You can see the profile, it has stepped profile, that's the reason it is called a stepped pyramids. So originally you have these mastabas. After mastabas, stepped profile pyramids were constructed with the stepped profile. You can see in this picture, this is an example for stepped pyramid. You still have an underground burial chamber with a stepped pyramid on the top. And after these stepped pyramids, then came the bent pyramids. Bent pyramids are something where there are two different slopes. So if you observe carefully in the bent pyramid, the bend in at one level. So you can see in this picture also, till here the angle is 54 degrees. Then it changes, it becomes 42 degrees. So it is a bent pyramid. It bends at a particular level. So such bent profile pyramids were constructed after stepped pyramids. And finally, Egyptians learned the technique to construct the sloped pyramid, the example for which is the Great Pyramid of Giza. You can see over in that picture as well, that is the pyramid of Chefren, that is the name of the pyramid, that is the pyramid of the Giza complex. So after these bent pyramids, finally came the sloped pyramids. So these are the points which you can remember with respect to the evolution of the tomb structures. Earlier, mastabas, step pyramid, bent pyramid, and finally sloped pyramid. Examples for all those four types are shown in this particular picture. You can access this presentation, this document from the KPE classes app under the study material tab. So make sure you download the app, sign up into it, go to the study material tab, and have a look at the study resources which we are providing, which will be very beneficial in addition to this lecture for your self preparation to maintain a better notes. So maintain your own running notes and also refer to the free study material available on the app. So that will be a best way to prepare or study for the examination. Now, many students do a mistake in the preparation of NATA. I thought this would be the right time to talk about it. So remember this point in your preparation. If you are studying from a source, don't focus on collecting resources. Many students just think about collecting resources. Okay, I'm getting free study material here, so let me take from KP classes. I'm getting free study material from some other video or from some other YouTube channel, I will take that. So just collecting resources will not help you clear the examination. So don't get lost in collecting resources from 100 different sources. Select any one source which you think is good and authentic. Whatever source you are deciding, just follow that completely, because if you just try to collect things, you will end up not preparing the course. And also, if you're not watching, so for example, you are watching this video for day 5, maintain that continuity from day 1 till day 51 and complete the full course. If you just watch 5 videos over here, go and watch 5 videos somewhere else, that is not a correct way to prepare, because you will not complete your full course. So try to complete the full course from one source, from day 1 till day 51. If someone is teaching you the full course in some source, just follow the complete course in one place, and then you can look for additional resources if you want. But don't get lost in wasting your time in collecting resources and just not reading about it completely, right? Don't do that. So if you're following this lecture series, sincerely follow from day 1 till day 51, practice the questions which we are giving, use the study material resources which we are giving on the KP classes app. So that would be a correct way to prepare for competitive exams like NATA and JEE, because it is a competitive exam and it requires that level of sincerity in your preparation. Anyway, so let us move further. So this is about the evolution of pyramids. So tombs, not pyramids specifically, but tombs. Now that we understand about the pyramids or the tombs of ancient Egypt, let us get an understanding on the temples of ancient Egypt as well. With that, we will complete Egyptian architecture. So let us look into the temples of ancient Egypt. So this is a picture of the remains of the temple of Karnak. The name of this temple is Temple of Amun-Re in Karnak. The name of this temple is. Try to look into the picture, visualize it, try to look into the features. I will tell you some features of it, and remember the name of it, because you get picture identification based questions also in NATA examination specifically. This is Temple of Amun-Re, which is located in Karnak, which is a city in Egypt. The Temple of Amun-Re is a very famous ancient Egyptian temple. You can see how huge it is. Just compare the size of a human being. A person standing over here is so small compared to the actual size of the. So it is a very huge monumental temple. Egyptians had this habit of constructing monumental scale structures, be it temples or tombs as well. So this is a picture of the entrance of the temple. So let us try to identify some important features of the temples of ancient Egypt. Point number one. First and foremost, in ancient Egyptian temples, the entry of it is something like this. At the entrance, you have the entrance gateway, which is called as pylon. So these are called as pylons. You have a pylon over here, a second pylon over here, and between these two pylons, you have the entrance to the temple. So entrance is located between those two monumental gateways. So this overall structure is the gateway. So the entrance of the temple starts with an entrance gateway. Starts with an entrance gateway. The first part of the temple, the entrance gateway, is referred to as pylon, and you can see the picture of it in this particular image over here. So that is the first important component of the ancient Egyptian temple. One next point you have to remember with respect to the entrance gateway, that is pylon, is in front of this entrance gateway you have tall standing columns, freestanding columns. Now in architecture, you all are aware probably, the vertical supports are called as columns. You can see in this picture these are columns. These are also columns over here. Columns can be of two types. Columns can be used to support a roofing. Why do we use columns? To hold the roof on top of it. That is one purpose. Sometimes you also have freestanding columns. Freestanding columns do not support anything on the top. They are freestanding, right? So in front of the pylon you have freestanding columns. So these are not the freestanding columns. On the top actually roof was there. Now the building is very old, thousands of years old, so there is no roof seen, but actually these columns were supporting a roof. But here you see some columns. Are you able to identify these? There are two columns in front of the entrance pylon. So those columns have nothing to support on the top, and these are known as obelisks in ancient Egypt. So in front of the entrance pylon you have freestanding columns. Generally two freestanding columns, you can see in this picture also. So you can draw a diagram of it. So these are the freestanding columns seen with the pointed tip on the top. So these were known as obelisks. So what is an obelisk? It is a freestanding column seen in front of the entrance pylon of an Egyptian temple. So try to remember this point. Obelisks are the freestanding columns in front of the pylon of the ancient Egyptian. So entrance is called as the pylon. That's the first point, first part of the temple. In front of that you have these freestanding column called as obelisks. And one interesting feature, not necessary to write into your notes, but you can remember this point. These obelisks were taken away by Europeans later on in the Middle Ages, during Renaissance time in the around 1500s. Many of these Egyptian obelisks were taken away and carried into Europe and placed in the European public squares. What is a public square? In the cities you have large open areas in the center of the city, that is known as a public square. If you look into say the St. Peter's Square, which is a large public square in front of St. Peter's Basilica and Vatican City, so even in that St. Peter's Square also you have an Egyptian obelisk in the center. So obelisks from ancient Egypt were carried away to Europe, and many of them were placed in the central public squares throughout Europe. So even in today's time, if you go to the European public squares, in many cases you find Egyptian obelisks in the center. So what is an obelisk? Simply put, it is a stone column, which is freestanding column, which is placed in front of the entrance of the Egyptian temple. So that is about point number one. Point number two, after the entrance gateway, the second part, once you enter into the temple through this gate, if you go inside, you will find a courtyard. So it is an open to sky courtyard. The second part is open to sky courtyard. That's the second part of the Egyptian temple. What is an open to sky courtyard? It is basically a space which has no roof on the top. It just has walls. It's something like that. So once you go through the entrance, you have this entrance pylons over here with an entrance in the center. Once you go through this into the second part, you find an open to sky courtyard which has only walls but no roof on the top. That's the second part of it. Once you move through the entrance file, you have the open to sky courtyard, and this open to sky space in architecture is called as hypatral. That is something which you can remember. Hypatral court is seen in the as the second part of the Egyptian temple. Third part, once you move through the open to sky courtyard, then you have the third part of it, which is a columned hall. It is a hall filled with columns. You have a lot of columns. So this picture is actually that columned hall. So the parts of the temple start with the entrance, then open to sky courtyard, then you have this particular columned space which has a roof covering on the top, and then behind that you have the rooms for the temple service. So these are the various parts of the temple. They are in series, starting with the gateway with obelisk, then the courtyard, then you have this columned space. So you have a columned hall. Columned hall of the ancient Egypt is known as hypostyle hall. So this picture is of hypostyle hall. It's a very famous component of the ancient Egyptian temples. Hypostyle, HYPO, hypostyle call. Style is a word. Remember how to remember it? Style is a word which relates to column. So columned halls are called as hypostyle halls. That is something which you can remember. So this is a picture of hypostyle hall. And finally, the fourth space after the hypostyle hall, which you have in the ancient Egyptian temple, is the sanctuary. Temple sanctuary is basically the rooms for the worship. You have the temple sanctuary, which are basically rooms for worship. Ancient Egyptian temples were slightly different from other, or are slightly different from the religious spaces which we know of. If you look into church, mosque or temple, Hindu temples, what are these religious spaces? People go in groups and worship in those spaces. But in ancient Egypt, the temples were not a place for public gathering. People could not enter into the temples. Only the pharaohs and the priests, or only the priests and the royals used to go into the temples for worship. So that it was very much different from the character of religious places which we know of in today's time, because it is thousands of years ago, right? So we are focusing on architecture here. What are the parts of the temple? Open, so starts with the entrance gateway called as pylon with obelisk in front of it. Second is the open to sky courtyard, which is called as hypatral court. After that, you have this columned hall, columned space, which is called as hypostyle hall. And behind that, the last part of the temple is the room for worship, which is called as sanctuary of the temple. So these are the four parts of the Egyptian. Any typical Egyptian temple will have these four parts. Other than these four parts, you have to remember two important details about the Egyptian temples. With that, we can complete Egyptian architecture. So let me add those two important details, and I will erase these parts. I hope you maintained your own notes of this portion. I'll erase and write down over here two additional important points which you need to remember. Other than the parts of the Egyptian temple, first important point to be remembered is the surfaces of Egyptian. If you carefully look in this picture, the surface is not plain. Are the walls clear and plain? No, there is some sort of ornamentation on top of it. That is basically a pictographic writing system. The pictographic writing system of the ancient Egypt is known as hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics or hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphs are basically the pictorial writing, picture based. Write down this definition. There was a question in NATA on hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphs or hieroglyphics are basically the picture based writing system. Picture based writing. How do we write English? Using the English alphabet, which has 26 letters. But in ancient Egyptian times, picture based writing system. So the writing system had pictures like birds, snakes, vultures, and so on. So picture based writing system of ancient Egypt. Picture based writing system of ancient Egypt is called as hieroglyphics, and this hieroglyphics is seen on the various walls of the buildings. walls of the temples also you find a lot of hieroglyphics. So even in tombs, even inside the tombs and all, you have a lot of writing system inside the Egyptian structures, which is called as hieroglyphics. That is point number one. Other than the four parts of the temple, you have to remember this is point number one. Point number two is about the hypostyle hall. Second important. So with respect to the hypostyle hall, there is an interesting feature. What is hypostyle hall? I already told you, it is the columned hall of the ancient Egyptian temples. So these hypostyle halls have an interesting feature. If you look into this picture, you have columns in the ancient Egyptian hypostyle hall. All the columns were not of same height. Generally, the columns in the center were of taller height. So in the hypostyle hall, in the center, columns were of taller height, and smaller columns were used in the sides of it. So if you look into the section of it, these are the taller columns. Beside these, smaller columns were used. So using these two levels of columns, the roof level also you will have two levels. Generally in your room, if you look at the ceiling, you will have one level. But in hypostyle hall, ceiling level was of multi-level. So in the center it was an elevated roof. In the sides it was smaller roof. Why was this done? This was done to provide windows for ventilation purposes. So in this particular portion, where there is a gap, so ceiling is higher ceiling, lower ceiling, between that you have a gap. In that gap, windows were provided, and in architecture there is a special term for it. These windows, which are provided by staggering the roof level or near to the roof, if you're providing windows, these are known as clerestory windows. So in hypostyle hall you have the clerestory windows. What are clerestory windows? Windows provided near to the ceiling of the building. And in the hypostyle hall of the ancient Egyptian temples, you have these clerestory windows provided by creating staggering of the roof levels. Remember this point also. So yeah, these are the points you have to remember with respect to the ancient Egyptian temple. So I told you about the four parts of the ancient Egyptian temple: pylon, obelisk, hypaethral court, hypostyle hall, and the sanctuary. Make a note of those points. Obviously you will not remember just by listening at it once. Make a note of it, revise it, remember the parts, because you can get questions, in-depth questions of identifying the parts of the buildings or structures in the NATA examination particularly. In JEE exam you could get questions like what is an obelisk, or such term based questions can be asked. Other than that, I told you about hieroglyphics, which is the writing system of the ancient Egypt, which was used in the walls of the buildings of ancient Egypt. And then I told you about the hypostyle hall, where there is staggering of the roof level by using different size of columns and by providing windows near to the ceiling called as clerestory windows. So these are the details which you can remember which with respect to the Egyptian architecture. So maintain your notes, follow with dedication, follow the complete lecture series. That was very useful, because if you don't do that, you will miss out topics and you will end up, you will develop that confidence, okay, I know everything, but when you go to the exam you will know that you have not completed your preparation. So follow the complete lecture series. That will boost your confidence. Along with that will also help you cover everything of the syllabus and will be very useful in getting a very good rank in the examination. So that is about Egyptian architecture. If you go through this course, we are learning all the important concepts of the preparation of the syllabus, but along with that it is equally important to have practice. If you're focusing, or if you want good sources for your practice, you should access our solved papers booklet, which is designed with the explanation and answer key for all the last 12 years of question papers of NATA. You can purchase this book directly on Amazon, or you can also place your order through the KP Classes app as well. If you purchase this book, you will get the complete set printed book of last 12 years of questions, answers, and detailed explanation for each and every question. So so it is also important that you don't refer to sources where there are a lot of mistakes. So from KP Classes, we have developed a curated book with good quality content without mistakes, so you can access it for your preparation. Other than that, you can also purchase a complete study guide, complete study material set, which will include set of 8 books, which will cover the full topics, all the topics. So we are in module number 2. For that you can refer to book number 2, in which you will have history and important buildings. For module number 1, which we completed earlier from day 1 till day 4, you can refer to book number 1. For each and every module there is a book here, so you can purchase the study material book, which will be exactly aligned with the video series which you're following. So after each and every module you can study that book, practice questions. Best thing about our study material set is After each and every chapter, you have a lot of practice questions other than which were asked in the exam, new additional practice questions, and also previous questions of that particular chapter. So if you read one chapter, you can practice all the previous questions of that chapter, you can practice additional questions of that chapter, and then move on to the next chapter. So that is the best thing of the book. So we have structured it in such a way that it is highly beneficial to the student. So make sure you can purchase this study material set from the KP Classes app, which you have already downloaded and signed up into it. So moving to the last part of the lecture, that is Indus Valley Civilization. I told you in this day 5 lecture, we will study 3 civilizations. We completed Mesopotamian civilizations and Egyptian civilization. Third part we are looking into is the Indus Valley Civilization. Firstly, the name of it. First point, Indus Valley Civilization is also known as Harappan Civilization. It is also called as Harappan Civilization, and this is a Bronze Age civilization. Harappan civilization, and it is a Bronze Age civilization. Why not Mohenjo? You know, Mohenjo-daro also is an important site of Indus Valley civilization. Can we call it as Mohenjo-daro civilization? No, it is called as Harappan civilization because of a reason, and that is when this particular civilization was first discovered in 1920s. The first site which was excavated, the first site which was discovered was the site of Harappa. No one knew at that particular point of time that there is Mohenjo-daro also. Yeah, there is Ganeriwala also. Yeah, there is Rakhigadi also. All these sites were later on discovered. A lot of Indus Valley sites were discovered across Pakistan and also India, in the northwestern part of India, in the states of Punjab, Rajasthan and Gujarat. You have a lot of, including even in Haryana. So you have a lot of Indus Valley sites in all these northwestern states of India, and also in the Pakistan's Punjab and Pakistan Sindh province. You find a lot of sites, but the first discovered site was Harappa. So this civilization is called as Harappan civilization. That is point number 1 to be remembered. Point number 2 with respect to geography, which you have to remember, is that it is spread along the northwestern part of India and portions of Pakistan. Northwestern part of India, including states of Punjab, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Haryana. Other than that, you also have it in Pakistan, present day Pakistan. That is point number 1 with respect to geography. Other than that, with respect to geography, you have to remember that this civilization, Indus Valley civilization, mainly existed along the river valleys of river Indus and its 5 tributaries. So this is with respect, point number 2 is with respect to geography. So with respect to geography, it is located in India and Pakistan. And in addition to that, you can remember that it is located along river Indus and its 5 tributaries. Tributaries are nothing but the branches, and here you can remember the names of the 5 tributaries. So even the name of the state of Punjab comes from these 5 branches. Because there are 5 branches, it's known as Punjab. That's how the name comes. So what are these 5 branches of river Indus? These are Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Satluj and Beas. Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Satluj and Beas. So these are the 5 tributaries of river Indus. One additional point, not from history of architecture point of view, but just remember and do this as a homework. You can also get questions of general knowledge or general awareness or of related to the context of India and also the world. So try to do some research and find out what are the famous dams along the tributaries of river Indus or along river Indus. You can do that as a homework for your self-study. So Bakranangal Dam is one. Try to find out along which branch of river Indus is it located. So look into the other famous dams, old dams of India, and also have an idea of their geography. You can get such general knowledge based questions also in the examination of NATA. So that is about northwest. That's about the geography. 5 tributaries of Indus and river Indus along these regions of India and Pakistan. You have the sites of ancient Indus Valley civilization. That is about point number 2. Point number 3 is what are the names of the important sites or important cities. Names of the important cities include Harappa. These are in Pakistan. Harappa is in Pakistan. Mohenjo-daro. Mohenjo-daro. The word Mohenjo-daro, actually Mohenjo-daro is located in the Sindh province of, just like how we have states, 29 states in India. Just like that, you have provinces in Pakistan. So in the Sindh province of Pakistan, you have Mohenjo-daro, and the word Mohenjo-daro is a Sindh word, a Sindh origin word, which stands for mound of dead. And this question was asked in NATA examination once. So they asked which of the following city literally translates to mound of dead or hill of dead. Mohenjo-daro is basically, the meaning of this word is hill of dead or mound of dead. Mound of dead. What does this mean? So basically, locally in the Sindh province, in the Sindh language, it was known as Mohenjo-daro because it was known for people that, okay, there are some remains of some dead civilization here. So because of that, it is known as dead, mound of dead. Mound is nothing but a hill, hill of dead, because there are a lot of ruins of dead people or a dead city. It came to be known as Mohenjo-daro. So that's the origin of the word Mohenjo-daro. You can remember that. So Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, two important sites which everyone knows about. Other than that, you can remember you also have Dholavira in Gujarat. This is an important site. Other than that, you can remember Rakhi Gadi in Haryana. That also is an important Indus Valley site. And also you can remember Ganeriwala, that is in Pakistan again. So these are some important sites of Indus Valley civilization: Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Dholavira, Rakhigadi, and Ganeriwala. Remember some important sites of the ancient Indus Valley civilization. That is point number 3. So we have looked into some introductory points about Indus Valley civilization, the name of it, geographic details of it, and important sites or cities of it. So after these 3 points, now let us move on to the architectural detail of this particular civilization. So starting with, so we will try to focus on some important buildings, important structures, but before that we need to get an understanding on the overall city. What was the layout of the city? What type of planning was used in the city? Let us look into those details. So if you look into a typical Indus Valley city, be it Harappa, any Indus Valley city, there are a lot of more than 1,000 Indus Valley cities which are known that they existed in that particular time. So Indus Valley civilization, the interesting feature of it is, we studied that there are 4 ancient riverine civilizations. China's Yellow River civilization, Indus Valley civilization in Indian subcontinent, Mesopotamian civilization in the Iran and Iraq region in the Persian Peninsula, and finally the 4th one was the ancient Egyptian civilization in Africa, northeastern Africa. So of all these 4, Indus Valley civilization was the largest of all. No other ancient civilization was as expansive as Indus Valley civilization. And Indus Valley, it was known that there were links between these ancient civilizations also. So some say some material of, say, some artifacts of Indus Valley civilization were discovered in Mesopotamia as well. Some artifacts of Mesopotamian civilization were found in the Indus Valley sites as well. So there were links which were established between these ancient civilizations, which are documented by archaeologists. And this was the most evolved and largely expansive in terms of area, the largest of all. So that's the greatness of Indus Valley civilization. And let us go into the details of the city planning of this ancient river valley civilization of the Indus Valley, that is Harappan civilization. If you look into any typical city of the Harappan civilization, the city can be seen that it is protected with walls. So you see the complete boundary of the city is protected with walls. So the first important feature which you can remember is that the overall city is fortified. But even more, before fortification, you can observe one more feature, that the city has 2 parts. You can see this is one portion of the city and this is the second portion of the city. So if you see, the city has 2 different levels or 2 different portions, the higher level and the lower level. So this is known as upper city and the lower city. Generally that's the term which is used. So city was divided into upper and lower city. The upper city had large public buildings. So how do you distinguish between a public building and a normal house? Public building would be larger in size. Any public building, if you compare a normal house and if you compare public buildings like the shopping malls, hospitals, all these are public buildings in present days time. Even in Indus Valley civilization, there were some public buildings like granaries were constructed. Granaries are basically warehouses, or say godowns for grain to be stored in it. So those structures were seen. The Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro, such large spaces, large public spaces are seen in the upper city. And in the lower city, you have normal houses constructed. Normal people used to live in the lower city with individual houses. the first point with respect to the city planning of the ancient Indus Valley civilization is city was divided into upper city and lower city, and both these parts were separately fortified. There's a separate what is fortified? Fortification is nothing but large protective wall. So those compound walls. So these fortification or these large walls were constructed mainly to control trade and also to protect the river, to protect the city from the floods of the river, because these were constructed along rivers. During the rainy season, during monsoons, there were large floods seen in these rivers. So to protect the city from flooding, fortification was done. So both the parts of the city were both parts of the city. What are the both parts? Upper city and lower city. Both parts were separately fortified. So remember, what is fortification or fortified? Fortification or fortified is nothing but large protective walls. You can make a note of that also if you want to remember. Fortification or fortified is nothing but protective walls to protect from floods and to control the trade in the cities. So that was the reason of fortification. That is point number 2. Point number 3. The lower city was regularly planned with the intersecting streets. You can see the street layout. You have streets going on the cardinal direction, north, south, east, west, and all these streets intersect at right angles like a grid. So the overall city, lower city, was laid out of a grid pattern. So the lower city where you have the houses, lower city where you have the residences, this portion was designed with a grid iron layout. What is gridiron layout in city planning? Gridiron layout of city planning is where the streets are forming a grid. The streets, roads of the city are intersecting at right angles and forming a grid. And within those grid, you have the spaces where you have the houses constructed. So that is point number 3. That's the third feature which you have to remember about the planning of the city. Last and final point with respect to the Indus Valley cities is the level of importance given to the services, the facilities of the city. No other ancient civilization of the ancient world had that level of services. For what are the services in cities? Like water supply. The water supply of ancient Indus Valley civilization was well planned. There were public wells and there were individual residential level wells, also private wells. So there was a well planned water supply system in the city. Not only that, underground drainage system. No other ancient civilization had underground drainage system. In fact, underground drainage system was not seen in European cities even till medieval times. So in ancient Indus Valley civilization, there was well planned underground drainage system. What is underground drainage system? Below these streets there are underground drains where the wastewater will flow. Wastewater from the domestic purposes like washing, cleaning. So waste will be generated from having baths. So that wastewater which is generated at each and every house, that was connected to the underground drains of the city. So these well planned services like water supply and most important is underground drainage system. The city had well planned water supply system and well planned underground drainage system, which is the most important feature of the ancient Indus Valley civilization. So these are some points you have to remember with respect to the civilization of the city as a whole. So I told you some introductory points about the civilization in terms of geography, important sites and all these. Then we looked into the city level detailing like upper city, lower city. Each of it was separately fortified, and you also have the gridiron layout of the city, and you also have the underground drainage system and well planned water supply system in the cities. Let us now look into some important buildings of it. So starting with the Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro. So you can see in this particular picture, this is considered to be one of the world's oldest public water bath or water pool. So how do we know that this was a water pool? Because it was made airtight. So it was made out of bricks. So the major construction material in all of Indus Valley cities is bricks, clay bricks made out of clay. That was the major construction material, be it Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro or be it the houses or be it the underground drainage system. Everything was lined with bricks, clay bricks. So these burnt clay bricks which were used in the Harappan civilization in this Great Bath. So the first important structure is Great Bath. Great bath is a large public swimming pool which has steps to give access into it, and it was designed with watertight features. It was made waterproof using natural waterproofing materials like bitumen. Bitumen is a natural substance which was used to fill the cracks and gaps in this particular water bath to make it waterproof. So Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro is the first important building which you have to remember, which is located in Mohenjo-daro. Material is bricks. Other than that, you can see this particular picture. This is a typical picture, or this is a picture of a typical Indus Valley city in those times. You see the streets and houses along the streets, and the houses were constructed with flat roof. All the walls, the foundation, and everything was made out of bricks in the Indus Valley city. The roof was generally done out of timber. Timber roofing was generally seen in the cities. So, and if you carefully observe, in the center of the street, if you look into this picture, in the center of the street you have some bricks seen. That is because there is underground drain over there. So the drain covers was done using bricks. You can look into this particular picture. This is a picture taken from inside the drain. So this is below the street. Above this you have the street. Above this you have the street, people walking on it. Below that you have the underground drainage below the street. And how is the roof cover of this underground drain? It is done using cobbled arch. This is called as the cobbled arch drain. What is cobbled arch in architecture? Cobbled arch is basically an arch created with stepped profile like this. So if you're having bricks, place one brick, place a second brick slightly projecting out of it, a third brick even more slight. So if you're placing a brick like this, second brick on top of it, third brick. So if you're placing bricks with a stepped profile, you get an arched profile out of it. That is called as a cobbled arch in architecture. Corbelled. It is called as a cobbled arch. So you see cobbled arch drain in the Mohenjo-daro and also other civilization, other cities of ancient Indus Valley civilization. Cobbled arch drain. What is a cobbled arch drain? It is an underground drain where the roof is done using bricks with a cobbled arch and then supporting it on the walls, so that people can also walk on that. So nothing is visible from the top, but actually underground there's a huge drain for the wastewater to flow, also rainwater to flow. These are some remains of Mohenjo-daro, and you see all these structures are made out of bricks itself. So brick masonry is nothing but brick construction. So bricks were used in the construction. You can remember one point here. Generally, English bond of brick masonry was used in construction. English bond of brick masonry or brick construction. In brick construction, there are different types of bonds. You have header bond, structure bond, English bond, and Flemish bond. What is English bond? You will get to know these details in the next module. In the next module, module 3, we will study about building construction and building materials. We will look into the details of brick masonry over there. So remember, English bond of brick masonry was typically used in the Indus Valley cities, not one, but all the Indus Valley cities. So these are some details about the Indus Valley civilization. A quick recall if you want over the Indus Valley civilization. We started with the generalized points with respect to the name, the geography, and the important sites, and then we looked into the city level details, that it is made out of gridiron layout, upper city, lower city, fortification, and also that there were services like water supply and underground drainage system in these cities. Then we looked into some important buildings like the Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro, the public residences which had flat timber roof. Everything else is made out of brick, only the roof is made out of timber, that is trees. Other than that, I told you about the drain cover which is made out of cobbled arch, and English masonry which was generally used in the Indus Valley cities. So these are the details which you can remember about Indus Valley cities. So that is about the three ancient river valley civilizations. So in this day one of history, we have discussed all the important details which you have to remember with respect to ancient civilizations of the world, including Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and Indus Valley civilization. If you want to revise or learn even more in a structured manner, you should consider joining our classroom program. So we have live online classes and physical classes. We provide coaching basically as well for your, if you want a full year preparation, and if we are covering entire syllabus in this 51-day course also, by the way. But if you want an even more detailed study, and if you want to learn even in a structured manner with all the facilities of the coaching, you should enroll into a classroom program. Other than that, if you just want to practice along with this particular lecture series, you can just purchase our online test series, and you can also purchase our books, our guides, study material set for your self preparation. So it is up to you. If you think you can take out your time and dedicatedly follow a timetable For yourself, you can do your self preparation. Just take the study material and the test series. The videos will be sufficient for your preparation. But if you think that you cannot dedicate 100% of your efforts on your own, you want help from the coaching, you can take a coaching program as well, where our faculty will handhold you through the preparation and make you prepare 100% of the syllabus by the end of the year. You can also enroll for two-year program as well. Whichever you think is suitable for you, you can enroll into that program. You can just contact us. Contact details are available in the description of this video. Just call or WhatsApp on that number and our counselors will help you select the best resource for your self preparation of NATA and JEE-2 examination. We will practice questions moving ahead. So because there are various videos, there are 6 videos within history, we will practice questions of today's topic also in the next video. For sure, I will include questions of this particular topic as well. So thank you for watching this video. Practice, study for yourself from the free study resources, practice the questions as well, and we will meet very soon in the next video and start with the next part of history. Thank you.